Invalid criticisms of an open source society. This is a video highlighting the misleading nonsense people will come up with unintentionally because of their knee-jerk reaction to my film. Only someone who isn't thinking could vomit out this propaganda with a straight face, because honestly, it is hilarious. While at the same time very sad if people actually believe these criticisms are valid arguments against my film. The reason why I'm making a video like this is because although there's meant to be a fair use policy, I don't believe it. So rather than going through criticism-related videos of this nature, I'm making a video responding to just the criticisms I've heard, rather than responding to any actual YouTuber. Science is communism. You hear this one when you say, no money, or an open source society, or a society that works like a public library. Keep in mind, people don't go this far, but they might as well be that ridiculous and say that they believe science is communism, or a public library is communism, the internet is communism, and so forth. Remember that this is a slander technique for people who don't actually think about the words they're using and get their opinions from the mob and the rich. Give it an evil label and that's the end of the story. When someone says an open source society is communism, you'll note that it isn't followed by an explanation. The evil label is the explanation. It's a put-down, an insult, rather than a real argument. The simple definition of communism is property being owned by the state, or abolishment of private ownership, or a political theory favouring collectivism in a classless society. But the left and the right both lead into fascist societies, in my view. Although the definition of communism will sound appealing, private ownership is abolished and the government owns everything. But what exactly is the difference between a rich capitalist cunt living in a private mansion, desiring people to stroke his ego because of his wealth and power addiction, and a communist government doing the exact same thing, owning everything in a society? You see, both capitalism and communism are variations of the market, trading, anti-social system scenario. As far as a classless society, capitalism and communism both definitely have the rich and poor social classes. But at the same time, not everyone can be exactly equal in intelligence and ability due to differences in gender and whatever else. Which is what seems to be sought after by people who advocate communism. Specifically, I'm talking about the modern far-left feminist movement. Their form of equality is a form of madness, with claims such as gender is a social construct, seeming to be pro-sex change, which to me seems like pandering to someone's mental illness, anti-white people, and saying they're for equality when feminism has a clear bias towards as much social support for women and as little as possible for men. Nevertheless, there certainly can be a healthy level of goodwill where society wishes to cooperate with itself, men and women pooling their resources instead of our current market, competitive social system. You see this despite the market, not as a result of it. A social model with both parties trying to get the better end of the deal ends up with monopolies, power and control in the hands of a few, turns people into power addicts. And the changing of people in political office does not change the model, hence won't fix the social problems present in the current system. When pursued on this issue, this comes into our next invalid criticism of the why and how people can become power addicts, meaning dictators or violent or evil. People are evil. It's human nature. This society, rather than people dealing with their inner demons, the general callousness of society, which comes from the market ideology to be competitive, to get to the top of the social ladder, through of course business, the stock market, gambling, scams and so on, we think it's natural to blame someone directly for their actions, be it murder, vandalism, theft, rape, pedophilia, the worst behaviour we can think of that our society produces. Piracy doesn't count as a corrupt behaviour, since, as explained in my film, this reality already allows any combination that can be invented, hence any work of engineering, music, film, etc. are all discoveries, so the idea of intellectual property is therefore retarded. As my film states, the creation itself is the reward, not money. Rather than thinking about someone's upbringing and the desperate struggle the market society puts people through. Of course, if someone's got the money and they commit a crime, rather than going to jail, they get let off the hook because they've got lawyers, because they can pay the fines and simply move on. The media might make an example of a rich person receiving punishment, but generally it's the poor who are punished for their bad behaviour, not the rich. But furthermore, punishment actually encourages bad behaviour as it's a form of violence. When someone's sent to jail, generally they'll come out with an even more negative view of society and go back to committing crimes, meaning a jail deserves the label torture facility more than the label correctional facility. So far, these are the ridiculous criticisms against an open source society, what they translate to when broken down. Science is communism, people are evil because the devil, demons, evil genes is directly responsible for someone's behaviour, etc. The third invalid criticism which I've heard is that automation will never replace my job. And this one has some truth to it for the wrong reasons. What I mean is that yes, as a society, we don't need to progress technology. We can choose to keep it stuck on the verge of ultimate automation, such as 3D printing, open source designs to print items in your home, driverless cars, replacing sweatshop slavery with robots, open source software, etc., etc. The result of it keeping it stuck on this verge is that we never need to question the core faith, the belief system. The result of keeping it stuck on this verge is that we never need to question the core faith, the belief system, the unjustifiable reasons given as to why we need our current antisocial system known as money, trade, the market, politics, capitalism, communism, or isms in general. As an aside, you'll see there that in English there is no clear definition of this current zeitgeist. There's a desire for it to be undefined, so the rich and the mob can keep it how it is. Otherwise, you'd actually have to use your brain to think outside the invisible boundaries society has put on your mind. Countries like North Korea, for example, best show how a whole country can be a cult and have a disloyalty to freedom of speech. Of course, countries vary on their freedom of speech, but with the rise of cult-level feminism, the future of freedom of speech is concerning for the rest of the world. Back to automation. Currently, our society puts a human labour belief on certain tasks. They simply could not be done by machines, like chefs, like driverless cars, and of course some tasks are absolutely irrelevant and counterproductive to progressing society and understanding human behaviour, like politics, casinos, courts, bureaucratic office buildings, red tape, and so forth, since they have no technical relevance towards keeping society functional. Real decisions are arrived at through science and testing, not simply made by the gut feeling of humans in politics, where, like any other entity in a market, is out for their self-interest, and don't have any real interest in what will be best for the health and well-being of the public. This belief that humans are the only creature that is able to do job X means that although technology that can replace job X might be developed and polished to such a degree that it can do job X better than a human, this belief can hold us back and retard society. Same with the retarded belief that prayer does something and isn't simply a bunch of cunts playing mind games and gambling on minor successes. The belief that the destiny of a human is to work as a slave at McDonald's is fucking stupid. A social illness, a virus designed by the mob and the rich to keep society dumb because of a fear of ambition and critical thought, and its bias towards shallowness and mediocrity. So, the invalid criticisms we have so far are science is communism, people are evil cause like Satan genes, whatever. Science can never understand people. Human behavior is directly genetic, aka human nature. Automation will never replace my job. Another invalid criticism I want to touch on in this video is the zeitgeist movement is dead, or this idea is dead. This seems like a last resort slander tactic. Of course, the line from V for Vendetta instantly comes to mind. Ideas are bulletproof. When all else fails and people still enjoy the idea of an open source society or a resource-based economy, natural law economy, whatever your preference for describing what my film advocates, the idea seems to be that saying the idea is dead will kill the idea, or make the idea never exist in the first place. I can only guess that this is the tactic behind this slanderous label. It's so ridiculous I'm actually lost as to what more to say about it. One last invalid criticism I want to mention is that people who advocate an open source society are somehow members of a cult, and it has a leader, meaning I'm actually being told what to do, and everything I'm saying is void because I'm just a mouthpiece for a cult leader. I was told to make my social atmosphere documentary, etc. This is fear propaganda. I wasn't told to make my documentary. I made it because I wanted to make it. Also, sometimes this invalid criticism uses the term internet cult. Of course, you just have to think about that term for 2 seconds to realize that no cult can exist on a free and open platform like the internet. A cult must exist through deception, which is why a real cult like Scientology will try and get you to install its brand of net nanny software to filter any sites which reveal how stupid the cult's ideology is. The idea that advocating an open source society simply equals cult activity is just a fucking lie. Okay, another invalid criticism I recently heard is this idea that an open source society is anarchy. Defined, anarchy means a state of disorder due to absence or non-recognition of authority or other controlling systems, or absence of government, and absolute freedom of the individual, regarded as political ideal. So, when we think of the word anarchy, we think of violent protests, like people chucking Molotov cocktails at police officers, buildings being burnt by arsons, etc. Well, I am an advocate of an open source society, and I don't suggest that sort of behaviour is productive in any way. There's a George Bush Sr. quote which comes to mind: "The rule of law, not the law of the jungle," which I obviously completely disagree with. Bush's idea is man doesn't have a connection to nature, or through business and politics and the legal system, we can somehow magically overcome this connection to nature, which is stupid. No matter how many laws that are passed, the laws of nature will not budge at all because of them. And since that is the case, we should align society to those laws. The how to do so described in Project Earth in my Social Atmosphere documentary. Not to be so stupid and egotistical as to believe we can tell Mother Nature what to do. By the way, this is the assumption with the word anarchy. Built into our words are 4 constraints. In definition 2, government is the authority. The controlling systems of our current political system don't really have control, since they're simply a belief, oh, we'll see if punishment works this time, and we need harsher penalties. You hear this sort of rhetoric from the nightly news, and it's rubbish as explained earlier. Also contained in the word anarchy is the idea of absolute freedom of the individual, which is impossible since humans are bound by natural laws, the rules of our reality, which, unlike the legal system or the rule of law, can't be disobeyed. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This video is open source, so it's yours to download freely. I close comments, but if you want to open the comments and read them on your channel, you're free to re-upload this video without any permission from me. Bye for now.